Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
And hundreds of Tasmanian jobs are under threat in the wake of Virgin's woes. The Premier says he's certain there would be enough demand for a second airline to operate in Tasmania if the carrier can't be resurrected.
Airports are empty, flights have been grounded. Virgin is facing the strongest turbulence of its time.
It's a terrible situation to go in and see the lights out.
A dark day for the airline and its thousands of employees. Here in Tasmania, more than 240 ground staff who are contracted to work for the company have been affected. Some have been stood down after flights in and out of the state were suspended due to the virus.
But indirectly, it could, get up into the higher hundreds. So it's sort of hard to put an absolute figure on it.
Freight services into the state have been booming during the pandemic, with Virgin in that mix.
We have operations by, daily weekdays by Qantas Freight and by Virgin Cargo. That's services from Melbourne to Launceston.
That's another significant part that will be falling into disrepair with all of this.
Who will fill the void if Virgin's freight services stop remains up in the air. The Premier has made one thing clear.
I think it's important that Australia has at least 2 major airlines.
Also hosing down tourism fears.
The assets that we have, the fantastic wilderness, the beautiful scenery, that will remain. And so regardless of how many airlines are flying, we will see demand for the product when the borders can be removed.
The search for a sky-high saviour now begins.
Having competition in air travel is more important for Tasmania as an island. So I do hope we can see Virgin return to the skies and continue to provide services to our community.
Letitia Wallace, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania's coronavirus outbreak has reached a new milestone, with the number of diagnoses hitting 200. But as the state creeps closer to the expiry of social distancing regulations, the Premier says lifting bans will rely on contact tracing, decreases in cases, and for a full reopening, a vaccine.
A familiar sight. Streets left empty as bars and restaurants remain shut. Social distancing here to stay for now, but some relief could be in sight.
It will be a different life, and I've said that, and people need to understand that. Social distancing is going to be with us until there is a vaccine. But we will be able to look at what restrictions we can begin to lift over time.
In place until May 15, those restrictions would be slowly scaled back if given the green light by health authorities, as they also consider lifting the additional retail restrictions on the northwest, expiring Sunday night.
One of the key aspects of this will be an increase or not in cases, and whether or not we continue to see the trend as it is occurring at the moment. And obviously another aspect will be whether we see another outbreak on the northwest coast.
A positive outlook as cases start to finally slow down in the COVID-19 epicentre.
In the last couple of days we've seen a reduction in cases coming out of the northwest, and I am hopeful that the measures that we have taken are working. 5 diagnoses were confirmed yesterday from the region, the state's tally now climbing to 200. Extra testing now set to be expanded further afield.
As of tomorrow, we are going to see the mobile testing clinic deployed to Smithton. So that will be able to provide testing for that community. I then expect later in the week that will be deployed to the West Coast.
The Premier saying another prerequisite to lifting restrictions, contact tracing and tracking, fuelled by a controversial app currently being developed by the federal government. The tool's set to record people's contact with each other on their phone, and if they subsequently test positive, that data can be retrieved.
Now, I would hope that Tasmanians, when the app becomes available, would download it in droves. We can move swiftly to save lives. What it means is that the people that are in close contact with a positive case are able to be contacted very quickly.
Ruby Kamane, 7 Tasmania News.
The situation at the Melaleuca nursing home in East Devonport has officially been declared an outbreak, despite just 2 cases reported there. But as many aged care facilities lock down to prevent the spread to their residents, there's concerns about the monitoring of welfare standards.
This East Devonport nursing home officially the centre of Tasmania's second outbreak of coronavirus, despite just 2 confirmed cases, a staff member and a resident.
Circumstances at Melaleuca nursing home do constitute an outbreak. There have been no further cases related to that institution, and 1 person with respiratory symptoms yesterday had a test taken that will be processed today.
As aged care homes across the state restrict visitors to protect their residents, a local advocacy group is worried about the transparency of welfare standards.
We've seen some lovely stories of people coming past and waving to Nan and Pop in, through the glass window, but that's, those are not all the people in residential aged care are like those people.
The national regulator says it's continuing site visits for facilities known to be at risk for breaching aged care quality standards, but unannounced inspections have been scrapped.
They feel, and this is again, this is their words, so they feel that they're going to, it will add an increased burden on the facility.
The local industry body and the federal government say authorities are adequately overseeing the sector.
We've had a 4-fold increase in the type of contacts and the number of contacts, so I can confidently say that the industry is being monitored and regulated as per business as usual.
They are still conducting those functions, and it's important that they continue to do that.
With family and friends locked out, some facilities are turning to technology. Hobart's Glenview Nursing Home have started a virtual visitor program, using video calls to help residents stay in contact.
They're in their own home, so it's a more relaxed environment. Of course, everybody wants to be able to visit face-to-face, but it's the next best thing we can do.
Talk to the facility directly and ask them what they do have available in price to enable them to be in touch with their loved ones.
Families concerned about the safety of residents are urged to immediately report it to the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
We have our first insight tonight into the real impact coronavirus is having on Tasmanian workers and businesses with the release of new jobs data. Our reporter Ruby Kamain has been going through the detailed figures and she joins us now. Ruby, good evening. We all know it's bad, but what's been the actual impact here in our state?
Kim, more than 7% of Tasmanian jobs have vanished in just 3 weeks, according to this special data release from the ABS. Our state had the highest proportion of job losses in the country since the coronavirus situation escalated in March. That represents the change to employment numbers since a pandemic was declared. Australia recorded its 100th case and those first big restrictions started. Now, this detailed data also goes into the sectors most affected. Here in Tasmania, education has been the hardest hit, falling 30%. Accommodation and food services jobs dropped more than 20%. Arts and recreation declined 15%. Retail was only down 1% and healthcare was actually up 1.5%. Now, this data is limited. It comes from payroll processing by the tax office, but gives us a more timely view of exactly what workers and businesses are going through. The next set of figures are due to be released in 2 weeks. For us here in Tasmania, that's set to be interesting, as it will include the start of that serious outbreak in the northwest. Kim?
SPCA Tasmania has been through troubled times in the past, and the organisation's new CEO is facing another major challenge. The current pandemic could see donations dwindle as Tasmanians tighten their purse strings.
A proud animal lover with 3 dogs of her own, Jan Davis is on day 2 at the reins of SPCA Tasmania. Ms Davis previously held the top job at the Tasmanian Farmers and Graziers Association and says the crossover makes her skill set ideal in her current role.
Focusing on what is right has always been my highest priority, whether it be as a farming community about the best welfare for our farming animals, or whether it be in the SPCA where our focus is on the broader animal sector as well.
A unique situation starting a role in the midst of a global health crisis. The organisation has previously faced financial hardship, with debts climbing into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Though SPCA has turned things around, and despite a looming economic downturn, there's hope people will continue to donate.
We're travelling steadily at the moment. We haven't seen any impact as yet. At this time, when people are so focused on their companions and their much smaller space that we live in than what we're used to, that actually can encourage people to be generous as well.
With Tasmanians spending more time at home than ever before, the SPCA has seen a surge in people seeking pets. Adoption fees have been slashed and you can even adopt some unusual animals.
So we've mainly done dogs and cats, but we've also had a couple of ferrets, some chickens and roosters, and even pigeons. We've seen a total of, since the beginning of March, about 199 adoptions from the Devonport sector alone.
Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania remains fruit fly free after an intensive surveillance operation. A single male fruit fly was detected in East Launceston earlier this year, sparking fears the local industry could be at risk if more were detected. Biosecurity Tasmania deployed additional traps and inspected fruit trees on nearby properties over a 9-week period. Officers also inspected nearly 2 million pieces of high-risk produce during the peak of the season. Thankfully, no further fruit flies were found. Tasmania's Parliament is being recalled next week, but some politicians aren't happy about the arrangements. It had been suspended until August as the state faced the coronavirus crisis, but now it will sit for one day next Thursday, allowing scrutiny of the government's response. Labor has welcomed the recalling of Parliament, but says it's unacceptable only one day has been scheduled. The University of Tasmania is calling for an overhaul to how funding for Antarctic research is allocated. It's received $20 million in federal support over the next 3 years to research how changes happening on the continent and in the Southern Ocean are impacting the global climate. At the same time, Victoria's Monash University also received $36 million to undertake its own studies in the same area. They say it should be centralised, with Hobart's Antarctic division as the focal point.
We think it should all come through the Antarctic Gateway here in Hobart, so that the efforts are well coordinated with the Antarctic division, who provide all the logistics capabilities for this work.
The federal government says the funding supports collaboration between experts in the field. Tasmanian families needing some extra help through the pandemic can now access an educational engagement program from home. Service provider Colony 47 usually runs packed through schools, but is now sending off craft boxes to parents, as well as offering phone and online assistance for constructing projects
it actually
for
focuses
children.
on the key topics that the families want to talk about through the program, but it also provides a really great opportunity for parents and the children to spend really great quality time with each other.
More than 30 boxes have been delivered so far to families in the past week.
Good evening. Hobart and Bushy Park out top today with 18 degrees, Launceston and Burnie 16 and Devonport a high of 15. Fairly dodgy weather around the state. Most of the rain though falling over the west and mainly early in the day as well. Grove, Campania and the Islands all 17 degrees. Low Head, St Helens and Ouse 16. Strawn a top of 15. A thick mid to low level cloud band moved over the state with cold convective air behind to the west. Now that cold pool of air pushes back over the Bight as well. A mid-level cloud band sits from the northwest of the nation down through to southeastern parts. A cold front is placed to our east tomorrow with a large high over inland New South Wales, South Australia and Victoria. Troughs over the west and far north. The wind's westerly, 20 to 30 knots, but up to 40 knots over southern waters with swells there up to 7 metres. Gale warnings on from Wineglass Bay to Low Rocky Point, a strong wind warning for remaining coastal waters and also for the southwest lakes. And we have a sheep graziers warning too for the Midlands, Upper Derwent Valley and southeast districts. So for Wednesday, Hobart a possible early shower, a windy day and 15 degrees, windy all over in fact. Geeveston a shower as well and 14, 12 the top for Bothwell. Launceston 17, mostly sunny, windy for Devonport, partly cloudy and 16, 16 also for Cressy. 15 the top for Burnie and partly cloudy, Strawn a shower or two on 15, Curry on King Island cloudy and 16 degrees. High of 17 for St Helens and Swansea, mostly sunny in the east, 16 the top for Orford after that early shower clears. Thursday, showers over the west extending statewide in the evening. Hobart expecting 20. Showers on Friday contracting to the west and far south in the morning. Fine over the east. Swansea looking at 19. And on Saturday, showers over the west and far south. Later over the north. Strawn and Burnie both looking at 17 degrees. A possible shower for Perth tomorrow. Cloudy weather for Adelaide and Melbourne. And sunny up the east coast. 31 the top in Brisbane tomorrow. And cloudy conditions over Tasmania at the moment. 14 degrees in Hobart, 13 in Launceston, Devonport cloudy and 14. That's the way the weather's shaping up, Kim, and thank you very much for allowing me onto your show tonight.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Murph, we still love you. That's all your news for now. I'll be back later with some updates. Thanks for joining us. Good night.